Welcome to the broadcast, everybody. I know that the makeup is a bit of a hot mess today, but it is what it is. I can't be bothered to wipe it all off and start all over again. I wanted to kind of go with the theme of this blouson with blues and greens, but then it evolved into some sort of Toya Wilcox affair. A little bit of Boy George with Karma Commedia, a cheap version of that. I am not technical when it comes to makeup. I get so many questions and comments. How do you do it? Give us a tutorial. My dear, I never take any longer than 5 minutes to whack it on. I am not a makeup artist. I've got no desire to be one. I've got no desire to inflict another makeup tutorial on the world. Just play with the paint pots and slap it all on. Hope for the best, my dear. That's the best thing for it. And never take any longer than 5 minutes or, 10 on a special night, perhaps. But we don't all have to do editorial, styly makeup. Editorial makeup with contours and this, that and the thirds. That's for celebrities and stars and models that are going to be photographed and the image is going to be 2D. It's not for wandering about. You see these young girls and these young boys and these young things out and about, trotting all around the town, my dear. And they've used all the tips and the tricks and the tutorials and it looks wrong, doesn't it? It just looks absolutely wrong because it doesn't work in 3D, because as soon as they move their face from one angle to the other, that nose contour that they did and looked so wonderful on an Instagram photo or being filtered looks rather peculiar and like somebody's held their head by the ponytail and dipped their face in gravy or some other kind of muck. So I don't go into all of that, my dear. Anyway, I digress. The Duchess of Treason asks, Dear River, did you notice that Doria acquired a tattoo? And do you like tattoos? And do the royal family have any tattoos? Oh, this is putting me in mind of a vocal warm-up. Here's a to-do to die today at a minute or two to two. A thing distinctly hard to say, but a harder thing to do. For there'll be tattoo at 2 to 2, a rat-a-tat-too at 2. For the dragon will come and they hear the drum at a minute or two to 2 2, today at a minute or two to 2 2. And I used to be able to do that twice as quick. Anyway, I digressed yet again. Doria's tattoo. Did I like tattoos? Do the royal family have any tattoos? Well, this surprised me because I had a little look, and in fact, tattoos are a kingly accoutrement. Yes, it was King George V that is known for having a tattoo. We'll come to that in a moment, but first of all, here's Doria's tattoo, which she acquired last year in September, I believe. Well, that's when it was first spotted on the occasion of her 66th birthday, if rumours are to be believed. What do you think it is? To my eyes, it appears to be some kind of flower design, but perhaps with a few different things going on the forearm. Patchy, isn't it? Some sort of patchwork affair. I wondered if it could involve lilies for her darling granddaughter, Princess Lilibet. And it could be a flower. There are those that say it's a flower because that was Doria's nickname for young Meghan, the precious flower, wasn't it? I think it looks inelegant, especially from a distance. In fairness, it could look nicer when you're close up. From a distance, it looks like some sort of rash or perhaps some sort of skin infection. I'm afraid, Doria, my dear, it does. Or it could be scabs. Looking on from a distance, it has the appearance of scabs, I'm sorry to say. I think there is a fine line when it comes to tattoos. My own opinion is that you have to be the kind of person that can suit them or not suit them, and there's no real advice I can give one way or the other. I know people that look fabulous with the most random, cheap artwork that would look hideous on anybody else, but they have the sort of charisma and the panache to do it. There's been times when, years ago, I sort of considered getting this, that and the fourth, various tattoos that might mean things to me, but I know that I just simply wouldn't suit tattoos, not long term, that's for sure. So I think it comes down to the person and whether or not they can carry it off. Most of the time I advise people to steer well clear because I don't think they become most people, I've got to say. Don't mean to offend anybody with tattoos. My mother has a tattoo. I don't have many family members with tattoos, but they are there. I think my great-grandfather had a tattoo. And my mother had a tattoo done later in life to mark the passing of a loved one. She had yellow roses to her thigh, I think it was. And when she first sent me the photograph, I thought that she was showing me a photograph of bruises. I thought she'd been covered in bruises, these yellow roses. It gave off the impression of bruises. So it's not just Doria that I'm disparaging by saying that they give off the appearance of scabs or skin infection with my very own mother, who has really good taste most of the time, I have to say. You know, for her it was a sort of hidden homage that she wanted to carry with her at all times. So I can understand that. I can understand the compunction to do that and carry a personal tribute on one's body and feel it etched into the fabric of your physical body. I can get that. But yeah, she had one. Princess usually has a tattoo. It's behind the ear. It's a tiny little circle. I think it looks ridiculous, but I'm quite sure with usually that it will mean something very special to her. It doesn't take away from the fact that it looks like she's got a screw loose. Literally. It looks like, some sort of, what is it they call it, wrench or spanner? No, what's the thing? I don't know. I'm not into DIY or this kind of thing, my dear, but some sort of crater. No, I don't know what the word is. It's gone. She's got a screw loose anyway, my dear, or maybe she is screwed in. She's got one. It's unfortunate. Lady Amelia Windsor, who is the granddaughter of Prince Edward, the Duke of Kent, she has several. She's got one on her rib cage, she's got a tiger on her shoulder blade, and she's got one on her wrist. I don't know any of the major royals that have got any that are visible. Queen Camilla has worn henna versions of tattoos. She had, and it looked classy on her. A henna tattoo looked classy on Catherine at one point, but a henna tattoo on the Duchess of Sussex. Well, you can tell me what you think that this looked like, because I think that it looked like a great big dollop of bird shit. That's what I think. You know, like the bird shit dress on Oprah Winfrey? Poof! It would have matched with the henna tattoos, wouldn't it? Can't blame Meghan for that. I'm blaming the artist, I suppose. It's not really Meghan's fault, but it looks to me like bird muck that's been scraped up and muralated into some kind of design. It didn't look good to me. Foreign royals, there have been foreign royals with tattoos. Princess Sophia of Sweden is one of them. I don't like this star, I'm afraid, on a princess. To me, it's vulgar. Princess Stephanie of Monaco with this sort of daisy chain affair around the wrist, whatever it is. Well, to each their own. Some of them look nice, but to my eye and to my taste, 9 times out of 10, it looks nicer without. But I can't claim that it isn't royal, because as I mentioned, King George V wrote about getting inked when he was a young prince, in diary entries that appeared on display. This was during a visit to Japan, and he was there with his brother, his younger brother, Prince Albert. And Prince Albert got a couple of stalks. There's no photographic evidence of this, just these diary entries. And King George, or Prince as he was, had a dragon and a tiger, one on each arm, that were chosen to signify the East and the West. And he wrote in his diary, he said, "We spent a very pleasant week on shore. Nearly everybody on board has been tattooed. I've got a dragon on one arm, done at Tokyo, and a tiger on the other arm, done at Kyoto. The tattooer does a large dragon in blue and red, writhing all down the arm in about 3 hours. We did not find the pricking hurt at all," said the actress to the bishop. "The man who did most of our party was beautifully tattooed over the whole of his body, and the effect of these Japanese drawings in various colours and curves on his glistening skin was like so much embroidered silk." Doria was also seen recently, Queen Doria, at an art show at Beverly Hills. Old Granny Doria out and about. She was at the Gagosian in Beverly Hills. She's really coming out of her shell, isn't she? She's been so hidden away and cloistered for so very long. She seems to be coming out of her shell. She's established herself as Queen Doria the First. I can't think of another Queen Doria. I did actually Google it when I was preparing my notes. The only other Queen Doria I could see was the Queen of Doria oil tanker. There is an oil tanker of that name in the Arabian Sea. Lovely inspiration. Doria is Greek. Of the sea. It means of the sea. She emerged like a mermaid. Ooh, that's Meghan's jurisdiction, isn't it, my dear? It's the female version of Dorian, as you know. And I noticed in the photographs, isn't it funny? Meghan really does look like both parents. There's no denying that Markle heritage in her, or I would say in her children either. No denying that heritage, but also the Ragland genes are there. Strong, aren't they? Strong, strong, strong. Now, a slightly different question before we turn to the subject of Meghan, a slightly different segment here. Auntie A said, have you ever seen the Cheapside Hoard, the Elizabethan hoard of jewellery and jewels? And it is mind-boggling. There is a small clock, watch, made out of a solid block of emerald and a beautiful scent bottle. I would love to see your reaction, River. Those jewels would look amazing on you. Well, thank you, Auntie A. I had heard of the Cheapside Hall in passing, but I'd never truly investigated it, I must confess. So I did investigate it, and I thought I'd bring it to my audience's attention in case you're not aware of it, because it is worth mentioning. And flashing up a few photographs of this spectacular hall for those of you that enjoy the trinkets and gemmies like me and enjoy watching my vintage finds in Tip Jar Corner. Well, this is the find. This is the find. Buried treasure, the stuff of dreams. This was the stuff of my childhood fantasies. And I've got to tell you that as I flash up the images of some of these gemmies, these images aren't going to do any justice to the beauty of these pieces. Please be aware of that. They just won't. But I can imagine the joy of seeing them and having them in hand. And we can all get the chance to view them as well in a few years. But these treasures, this Cheapside Hall, as it's called, the Cheapside Hoard, I should say, not a hall. That's a bit YouTubey, isn't it? Hoard. This treasure lay undisturbed below one of London's busiest streets, known as Cheapside, and it was discovered by workmen in 1912. I think that was the year the Titanic sank as well, wasn't it? 1912. It was the greatest single collection of Elizabethan and Stuart jewellery in the world. Yes, the Elizabethan and Stuart period. Elizabeth I, of course, that is. It's all going to go on permanent display in a few years' time. They're scheduling it for 2026, a new museum in the West Smithfield, and I, for one, will be trundling along to treat my eyes to this candy. The workmen had been demolishing a timber-framed building in Cheapside near St Paul's Cathedral, and this building had stood on the site since the 17th century, but the cellars were older and they were lined with brick. So while the workmen were breaking up the floor, they noticed glinting in the soil, and this is the kind of magical moment that I fantasized about throughout my entire childhood. I still fantasize about it. That metal detector moment. Beep, beep. But this time it was just glints through the soil. How wonderful. They had struck the remains of a wooden casket. To their delight, a tangled heap of jewels, gemmies, and precious objects sprang forth, a spectacular find, and it was a time capsule of contemporary taste and the jeweller's trade. And previous to this discovery, very little had survived from this era, very little, so this was an important find. And to look through just a few highlights of the selection, here is a ruby and diamond button, gold with hemispherical head, a domed front decorated with 4 table-cut rubies around a missing central stone. There are white enamel discs and pellets with light blue enamel. This one is a pear-shaped rock crystal bead, a piriform drop of yellow rock crystal with star-cut faceting. This is an enamelled chain of flowers, isn't it wonderful? With bows and leaves. Again, the photographs are not going to do this exquisite item justice. Gold and enamel comprising 149 links of alternating double roses, leaves and floral bows. Isn't it fascinating and humbling to see what they came up with in the dim and distant past. Such things of beauty, like this amethyst rosette brooch. Oh, I wouldn't mind one of those in tip jar corner, my dear. Open octafoil of gold and enamel with 9 foiled amethysts in octagonal bezels. Here is a scent bottle with opal, gold enamel and gem-set flask with a screw top and chain. How clever and ingenious, richly decorated, and this would have contained perfumes made from flower distillations and spices. Here is a female cameo head in agate, and a sapphire solitaire ring, gold with plain hoop and hexagonal bezel set with rose-cut sapphire. I love the simplicity and the purity of the cuts and designs of these pieces. It gives them such strength. And I adore this spinel, opal and diamond pendant cross. I just adore it. That is something that I certainly wouldn't object to adorning my neck, isn't it? Absolutely exquisite. Enamelled gold in the form of a cross bottonet, with 6 rectangular table-cut spinels, bordered by 9 diamonds and 8 emeralds. And here, a head of Christ plaquette, cast in cobalt glass. Quite astonishing what they left lying around, really, isn't it, my dears? Salamanders, bunches of grapes, items of great whimsy, fruits, flora, so delicious. And of course, as my viewer mentioned, the star of the show, I must agree with you, and something that puts me in mind of Return to Oz and the emerald pincushion, I think it was, that Dorothy has to find together with the little tin man. Is it Tick-Tock? Yes, the emerald pincushion. This puts me in mind of that. It is the watch that you mentioned. This watch is set in a single Colombian emerald crystal of hexagonal form with a hinged lid. The dial plate is enamelled in translucent green. Absolutely sublime. I could sit and gaze at that for hours. And I can't wait to do so at the museum. I hope one gets the opportunity to have a really good look and get close up. I want it, I want it, I want it. This is the kind of thing that makes me feel like, is it Violet Beauregard? No, it's the other one, isn't it? Who's the one that wants the golden egg for Easter and she wants it now? I want it now. Veruca Salt. Yes. Gets me all salty, my dear, in exercise. Find me a Roy Kinnear, because I want it now. I want the emerald watch, and I want it now, Daddy. I want it now. Oh, it's bringing me Meghan vibes. Daddy, Daddy, I ain't going to pull on the heartstrings. Yeah, well, we can all do that, my dear. We can all sing Daddy, Daddy, can't we? Lovey Boo says, how do you feel about Meghan using her innocent little baby boy to lie about racism? She said he didn't get a prince title because of the colour of his skin. She then embellished that lie by saying that they changed the conventions so he couldn't get it. In other words, she accused the Queen of taking direct actions to stop Archie from getting his prince title. All of these lies using her innocent babby. Archie will grow up and read that his own great-grandmother hated the colour of his skin and discriminated against her own flesh and blood. Of everything the Harkles lied about, this is the worst of them all. What kind of mother uses her babby to make up stories about racism? Why has no one been outraged by this? Well, we have, dear, to be quite honest with you. I mean, thank you for your question, but we have been outraged. We have broached this sort of area before, but it is worth reiterating, lest we forget. Because it is what astonishes me to this day, is that this couple, this merchant grifting couple that want to hold everybody in the entire kingdom and beyond to account, what is it he wants? Not atonement or acceptability or culpability. What's that word he's always coming out with? Oh, my mind is going. Might be accountability, but always harping on about accountability from his father and from the institution itself. Where is your accountability? It's been years, and exactly as Lovey Boo says, that was proved to be complete and utter sophistry, everything you were coming out about. Prince Archie's titles being withdrawn from him, And, as I said at the time, I think Harry bears more responsibility for not imparting information to Meghan about the way that letters patent works. He should know that, and he should be able to tell the girl about it instead of feeding the flame and the frenzy and the hysteria. If he had already told her, why did she ignore it and look stupid in the ignoring of it? And if he hadn't told her, why? Because he knew the format. Is he so gaga that completely goes over his head? Well, I think I've answered my own question there. But it was a shirking of responsibility, and he never owned up to the fact that they got all of that completely wrong and then slated the royal family and the late Queen's memory on the world stage, and they have never publicly owned that. And that is something where there is no vague recollection of. They are recorded making those assertions. They were filmed doing it, and the evidence is plain to see that they got it wrong. They got it wrong. The royal family were simply adhering to protocol. If they want change, why can't they be the change? If they want accountability, why can't they show accountability and have the humility to take a great big gulp and nosh down a great big slice of humble pie before they expect anybody else to do the same? Yes, they need a dose of their own medicine. Are we going to see that? No. River, I'd love to know your favourite aspect of being English. Well, I'll tell you some of my favourite aspects. I don't think I could pick one, and some of these aspects are British as well as English, and these are in no particular order. But one thing I love about England is the sense of humour of most people in the kingdom. It's hard to compare it to other nationalities, and everyone's used to what they're used to, aren't they? But ours is rather dry most of the time. Famously, it has rather a sense of irony in it. There's oftentimes I'll go through the comments and I won't quite understand people's objection to certain things, and then I'll realise that they come from a different country and a different culture, even parts of the Anglosphere, and they simply it goes over their head. One can't blame them, it's a different culture, but I bear that in mind when watching other nations and content creators from other countries. People need to bear that in mind here. Sometimes the English can say things off the cuff that aren't meant seriously, but we use a lot of shadow boxing and double crossing in our language. And if you're here in the kingdom, then you're so used to that you can sense it without investigating too much time into thinking about it. But I can understand that it can be difficult to be interpreted from other quarters. I hope I'm explaining myself okay. But yes, our sense of humour is something I enjoy, because that's what I'm used to. And you've seen a lot of our comedy shows take off over the decades, whether that's Monty Python's Flying Circus, which I have to say doesn't make me laugh. When it comes to old shows, I prefer things like Some Mothers Do Have 'Em, Frank Spencer. That was a rather wonderful one, and I like lots of old Molly Sugden shows. That's My Boy. And various things. Absolutely fabulous, slightly more recent. I love Little Britain. I thought that was wonderful. I thought that was hilarious. Crude sense of humour as well, vulgar sense of humour stuff. Very good. This one might surprise people. I like the cuisine, or should I say the food. In centuries past, the English were famously mocked for their cuisine, sort of meat and potatoes and carrots, and not much available from these shores, so they would say, apart from a few odd vegetables. Well, what I mean is the availability here in the kingdom of the variety of food wherever you go. We have so many wonderful eateries and establishments. I'm very fond of what's available here, food-wise. And eating out is a wonderful, fabulous experience. I like our location, because it's so handy-dandy to get to so many places. Whether that's by Eurotunnel, we can take a train, because we are in Europe, but we are apart from Europe. We are a little island nation, and I like the fact that there is that distance between us that separates us and makes us something different. from the rest of Europe, which I love very much too. But we can take a train there now with the Eurotunnel, so we feel very interconnected there. We can hop around Europe very easily. So I'm very fond of the location. I'm very fond of our neighbours too, because you're talking about England, but we're surrounded here with Scotland, Northern Ireland, Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, and Wales, and I'm very happy with our neighbours. I love the characteristics of those nations too. They're a little bit of us, but they're different from us as well, with their own traditions, their own history, their own everything, but they make wonderful neighbours, and it's one of the reasons why I'm fond of the United Kingdom. It'd be very sad to see it separate within my lifetime. What happens afterwards, I don't really care, but in my lifetime I'd be sad I think we would all be weaker for it. And we would also be more susceptible to the domination of other interloping countries, regimes, this kind of thing. I like its size. I like that we are a tiny island nation, and we dominated the world in our history with the largest empire that the world has ever known, the repercussions of which we see today. It birthed so much. In some ways, it even birthed the next empire, if you will, of America, from the Pilgrims, this kind of thing. It certainly birthed the Anglosphere as we know it, all the English-speaking countries, which brings me on to the other thing. I love the language, the rich language, which influences so much of the world. It's our greatest export in many ways. Our literary achievements, our writers, our poets, our artists, the Industrial Revolution. And yes, for me, the monarchy is something that I enjoy living under, if you will, or over, if you want to look at it from the point of view that they are our servants and they're to serve us. I love the men. British men aren't really famed in the way that you might hear about, I don't know, an Italian romancer, I'm trying to think, or some Greek stud. You think about European sort of men, don't you? Or, I don't know, very sporty, Antipodean men. What other kinds of men are there that are famous throughout the age? All the classical kind of nations. One doesn't really look at English men, but I think English men compare very favourably to ones all around the world. In looks and in body. And I'm not going to mention various other nations. I don't wish to disparage them, but some that have a reputation for beautiful men. Some of their men are rather slight of figure, rather oily of character. And this could apply to several different nations. I'm not just pointing to one. They don't always live up to their legend, whereas Englishmen don't really have much of a legend about them. But for my money, are really rather an attractive bunch, and there's a great variety in look. And as I mentioned before, I also certainly have a mention for Scottish men as well. That's not to exclude the lovely women as well, but you know what I mean, ladies. And I think I got distracted in my rambling on, but when I speak about the size of this nation, it tickles me. It makes me proud, this small nation. People don't realise the whole of the United Kingdom you could fit into Texas, just the state of Texas in the United States, nearly 3 times. Texas is 2.8 times the size of the entire United Kingdom. You could fit it into Australia, 32 times. I did used to know if it was 32 or 52. Many times. And I often wonder if it has in some way fed our national psyche over the centuries. I think it must do wherever you are and whatever your terrain is, the terrain of your nation. But what I'm talking about, for example, is the English Reserve, which is a sort of quiet inner confidence. We may be a tiny nation, but we ruled the waves. Britannia ruled the waves, and we're still a force to be reckoned with, even though, in my opinion, and many others, we're possibly on the outs along with much of the Western world. But perhaps I'm catastrophizing, who knows, but we're still some sort of economical force to be reckoned with. London is still the financial centre of the world in many ways. We are the complete opposite of a huge, vast landscape, bold and big, such as Russia, for example. But sometimes, just sometimes, special things come in small packages. Not always, but sometimes. And there is so much treasure and richness and variety to be found here on these shores. I love the fact, what I adore is the scenery. It is a beautiful, beautiful kingdom. I mean, we have plenty of ugly places and areas that are rather mediocre, but you can hop from town to village, from one type of landscape to another type of landscape, and be completely blown away by the beauty of our rugged coastlines, the differences from east to west and north to south, the mountain ranges, the lakes, the meadows, the fields, the English country gardens, the beautiful little villages that are fairy tale-like and dreamlike. We have a lot of beautiful rural ancient villages and towns that are still left, and we have a lot of spectacular modern towns and cities as well, and urban locations. So there is great variety, and you can hop about all of it with little difficulty if you put your mind to it, and you can see a great deal within a week or even a day if you want to drive around and experience different parts of it. And as I'm saying this, I don't want to come across as arrogant. I'm very proud of this land, or at least historically I have been. But that's how I feel that everybody should be about the place that they come from. You know, it's rather nice if you have a sense of patriotism about the place that you come from and can find the things to be proud of about it. And I certainly have a great passion and a great love for almost everywhere else that I've ever been. From the glorious, glittering cities of Europe, gorgeous, glamorous, sexy Europe, which are utterly breathtaking, to the parts of America that I've seen, and to the far-flung places that I've never been and can't wait to experience. I've never been to India. That's somewhere where I'd very much like to go. That's at the top of my list. I've never been to India. And I'll wrap it up with a comment from an American, Debbie Dobles, or Debbie Dobbles. Debbie says, "My dearest River, I would like to let you know that my husband and I went to London from Florida to celebrate the coronation. The most impressive part of our visit was the people. Londoners are absolutely first class. Everyone we spoke to, from the security at Buckingham Palace to the cab drivers, workers at restaurants, and people I'd speak to in the gift shops, and participants of the tea at Buckingham," I'm not quite sure what you meant there, but "the most friendly I've ever met. We were in awe. Can't wait to go back." Well, isn't that a wonderful testimonial from Debbie Dobbles? Debbie Dobbles, thank you very much. We all love to hear how wonderful our countries are, won't we? Well, you had a good experience. I'm sure there are many people that had the opposite experience and probably came across some very grumpy Londoners in their time. So it's all down to our personal experience, isn't it? But as for you, and as for many others actually that commented during the coronation, lots of people remarked upon the people. I happen to think that we have a really good bunch of people here in the kingdom. But then again, wouldn't I? But that is one of the reasons why I, and many others, sprang so vociferously to the defence of these people who are welcoming and kind and nice and jolly in the main. You know, of course there's going to be good and bad. And there's going to be people having a bad day. Not everything is sunshine and rainbows, but in the main, this is a gorgeous, glorious, welcoming nation. As you saw on the very day when Prince Harry married Rachel and Meghan Markle, and you saw the most beautiful day in the most beautiful castle that anyone could wish for. But that wasn't good enough for them, and in fact, they'd already had a marriage ceremony conducted by the Archbishop of Canterbury in private. That was just a spectacle. That was just a spectacle for the public. It didn't really count. Another lie. Another version of the truth that they wanted to promulgate. Well, You lied about that, and you lied about the kingdom and its people, because they are fabulous. And so, my dear, are you, wherever you're from. And I know that from my own travels, my own experiences, and from the fruit basket, where I get to hear from so many splendid fruits gathered from all across the world. It's a corpuconia. What's the word? Why does this happen to me when I'm recording? Corpuconia. It's a corpuconia. No, it's a... I know this word. It's a cornucopia. Shish kebab. A cornucopia of magical fruits, a fruit basket from all over the world. Yes, over the past 2 years, I've got to hear from you and hear how splendid and fabulous you are too. So I thank you for sharing your fabulousness with me, because it is greatly appreciated and noticed. So leave me a juicy comment if you have something to say, and my tip jar, privy purse, is in the description box as usual. I'll see you next time, my dears. Take care, enjoy the evening, and toodle pip.